Hi, this is Scott with Spectre Gear, and we're back with another Wheel Gun Wednesday video. And for today's video, we're going to be talking about the Ruger SP101. Now, in past installments of Wheel Gun Wednesday, I've talked a lot about mindset issues, training, skill development. We've talked about mastering the double action trigger pull. We've talked about reasons for carrying revolvers. We've talked about mastering speed loading, and I've done some range demos, etc. But something that I really haven't delved into all that deeply is the guns themselves. And what I wanted to basically profile is the guns that I tend to carry. And I say guns plurally because I don't just carry one gun all the time. And that comes up a lot when people talk, well, what's your everyday carry gun? Well, what day is it? What time is it? Where am I going? What am I doing? Because that's going to define what I'm carrying. It's not the same gun every single day, but I have a pretty tight group that I keep in rotation. They're all within the same system, so I'm not doing anything to confuse myself. And in some occasions, sometimes I even carry an autoloader, believe it or not. But what I wanted to talk about first was the guns that I'm most likely to be carrying. I mean, I have some niche applications like, big giant honking 44 Magnums and then little bitty light um, airweight snubs. But those are for very specific purposes when I'm doing either a very low profile carry or I'm going into bear country. But for the other 99% of my life, just the day-to-day, everyday stuff, I've got a few guns that cycle through the rotation. Not necessarily, I don't really settle on any one and stay with it all the time, but I have some that I carry more than others. The SP101 is one of those. And I wanted to talk about it first because of all of the guns in my collection, this might be the best Goldilocks gun that I have. And what I mean by Goldilocks gun is a gun that's just right for what you're doing. Now, the what I'm doing portion of this is concealed carry. And that's concealed carry in the sense that no one but me knows I'm carrying a gun. Now, there are times in the past, particularly when I was on the job, where I would carry guns where everybody knew I was carrying. I mean, I was printing like crazy or half the damn gun was showing, but I usually had a badge clipped onto the front of that, so it's no big deal. But when you're talking civilian carry, look, you got to keep it low profile if you don't want to lose your permit, because I guarantee you, if you have a situation where you've printed in public and law enforcement gets called, your permit's probably going to get pulled. If only they pull it for a little while and put you in timeout, or you may lose it altogether. But it's an issue. You need to keep that stuff low profile, and there's a reason for that. So if I'm talking a gun that I can effectively conceal, but is still at the same time very powerful and very shootable, this represents the best Goldilocks option. And there again, I'm talking about something that is not too big, not too small, not too heavy, not too light, and everything works just right. Yes, I have guns that do certain things better. I have guns that have better triggers. I have guns that have better sights. I have guns that are bigger and more shootable. But putting it all together in one package that can be conveniently carried in a belt holster, this one has a lot going for it. I have some others that are close to that as well, and I'll be talking about those. But the SP101 is a gun that I don't think gets the attention that it needs because, and really what it comes down to in a huge way is the weight issue. But before I get to that, the reasons why this sometimes gets snubbed, so to speak, or ignored, let me talk just real quick about what this gun is and give you some real quick specs. We're not talking about anything new here. This is definitely not a new product. It was first introduced in 1989. I first saw one in 1990. Had a sergeant worked with me that had bought one, and at the time they were only available in stainless steel 2¼ inch barrel, but 38 special only. And there was a gunsmith that had done a conversion on his gun. It was called, I think it was called the pocket rocket conversion, and they had determined that this thing would stand up to the pressures involved with 357 Magnum. So he would remount the chamber so that it would take 357 Magnum, and then you could carry 357 in it. And he was pretty pleased with that damn thing. Now, I never during that time got a chance to pick up an SP101. I was on a different path, but around 2004 I bought this gun right here. But it's currently made to this day and is still a very popular gun for Ruger. Still available, I believe, in only stainless steel. I understand there have been some blue steel variants in the past, but right now, stainless steel barrel lengths, you can get 2¼ 3 1/16, or 4 1/5. inches. Now, I believe that's for the Canadian market. You can get them with fixed sights, adjustable sights. They have spurred hammers, spurless hammers, and you can get it chambered in 38, 357, 327 mag, 9mm, and 22 long rifle. Now, the chamberings vary. Sometimes they're available, sometimes they're not. They had 9mm with the moon clips available for a while, then it went away, then I believe it's back now. And there's some interesting 22 long rifle variants of this, although I wish they'd make this exact gun in 22 long rifle that I could use as a trainer, but more on that later. But the version that I have here, this is a 2 1/4 inch barrel version, fixed sight, spurred hammer. Already on record saying that I like a spur on my hammer, I like a single action cocking notch. I have a totally separate video for that to explain my reasons for that that requirement. But other than that, this is pretty much stock. The only modification that I've done to it is it has a meprolite tritium sight on here, and that's a nice thing about this is it's a fairly easy job to put this sight on, although if you're not handy with tools and you don't trust yourself drilling the hole for the sight, because while the hole is in the barrel, the sight comes with no hole in it, so you actually have to clamp it down and then drill the hole and drive the pin in. If that's something that's you don't feel confident in doing, a gunsmith will do that job fairly cheaply, I imagine. But otherwise, this thing's dead stock. Again, getting back to the Goldilocks analogy, the grips on this thing, I don't have custom grips. Now, I have custom grips on every other revolver that I own. This is the only one. Actually, the GP100 also has the stock grips, but I changed out the panels. I use these little SP101 synthetic panels instead of the wood. But the grip on this thing is frickin' perfection. I feel no need to go to any other grip. Everything on this is absolutely perfect, and I have pretty big hands. In fact, that's the SP101 in my hand. But this didn't show clear, but here we go. Everything on this just lines up absolutely dead perfect. So again, Goldilocks. But so let's talk about it, because it does bear some direct comparison. I alluded earlier that one of the things that pushes a lot of people away from considering the SP101, and they'll either look at a Smith Wesson J-frame, or they'll even look at that the Ruger LCR, their little plastic revolver, which I'm not opposed to. I know some people like it. I just don't. The thing is ugly as a busted blister, and the SP101 isn't particularly pretty, but it's pretty to me because it does things that I like. But the LCR is just ghastly to look at. But if you like it, fine. I don't really care, to be honest with you. It's just, again, getting back to why people look in that direction or look to something like the Airweight is because of that weight situation. And what they'll do is they'll go, well, you know what? The SP101, it's 26 ounces. I mean, it's heavy. Well, heavy compared to what? Because if you're carrying like a 3-inch GP100 in a belt holster and you switch to this, boy, is it going to feel a lot more compact and light. It's a matter of perspective. Now, if you compare this to this, of course, this thing hardly weighs anything at all. This is 14.5 ounces, and in the 642 version, it's 14.4 ounces. So yeah, this is light. It's very easy to carry. You can just tuck it away and forget about it, and everything will be great up to that point to where you actually have to shoot it. Because let's say you went even a step further and you got one of those 11-ounce guns, one of those 360 PDs that's made out of scandium and alien spaceship parts. Well, that's going to be wonderful, and it's also chambered in 357 Magnum, just like the Ruger SP101. So I can shoot 357, and that's better than the SP101 any day of the week. I'm being sarcastic. The second you touch off a 357 Magnum round out of that 11.5-ounce gun, you're going to know it. Holy cow. And you're going to know it because in order to press off a second shot, and again, I have very large hands, very strong hands, I touched off a round out of a 360 PD and the gun nearly dislodged from my hand. It ended up about like that. I had to push it down from the top strap and line it up for the next shot. That is not what I consider fast shot-to-shot recovery times. Whereas the SP101, I can crank out boom, 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 boom. just like that. And I'll show you, because one of the videos that's going to follow this one is a range demo where I shoot 357 Magnum out of the SP101 and also compare it to plus P 158 grain lead hollow points, which is another load that I tend to use. But I compare that to full power Remington 125 grain semi-jacketed hollow point 357 Magnum ammo. And the difference shot to shot wise is not that dramatic, to be honest with you. It's they're pretty comparable. So this is controllable in 357 Magnum. It's compact. Again, it's not too heavy, not too light, so it's comfortable to carry almost all the time. Whereas this thing, boy, snug as a bug in a rug. It'll just tuck right into a pocket and you'll forget it's there. But when you go to shoot it, that's the critical part. Now, all of us carry either 100% of the time or 99.999% of the time. We carry the gun and don't shoot people with it. The problem is when you present one of these little wispy 11-ounce guns with 357 Magnum in it, you have to get into a gunfight and process that gunfight. Good luck. Pray that they get dropped by that one round you're able to get off, because that second, third, fourth, or fifth round that might be required are going to come slow and painfully. So either learn to run, learn to hide, or get a different gun. I'm being completely honest with you here. It may offend you. If anyone says, oh, well, I can wrap off 357 Magnum just as fast as you can with a scan, do it. Please, and put it on video. I would love to see it, because I hear a lot of people say that. I don't see a lot of people doing that. And I know I certainly can't. Now, yeah, there's some people, they can get 5 rounds off, but it is not fast. And do keep in mind, in a gunfight, that second shot, that shot-to-shot recovery time is critical. Shot placement is number one. Hitting them with a significant enough caliber to do damage is number 2, and being able to repeat your shots right on top of each other until the person stops being a threat to you. Those are your most important factors. Ease of carry and being super duper lightweight is way, 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 way down on that list. Because I can tell you, this holster, if you look at that, is a little disgusting, but that's how much I carry this gun. I carry it a lot, but also shoot it a lot. Shoot it so much, in fact, that I bought a second one, so I can then shoot this one to death on the range and carry this one. The reason being is practice, 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 practice is critically important to any gun that you're going to be carrying to defend your life. And I propose to you, which one is more fun to shoot? Because if you have a gun, even if you decide, well, I'm not going to go with that 11-ounce scandium gun and carry 357 Magnum and something that's inappropriate to task, I'll just step up a little bit. I'll get a little 14-ounce air weight. I'll just shoot that and just carry 38. Well, I do that too. I mean, I own this gun for a reason. It's because I do carry it, and I do pocket carry it, and this is one of my niche application guns, but this gets carried probably once a week for whatever purpose. But yeah, I'll pop this in the pocket, and this gives me a little bit of confidence that I at least have something other than a knife for the gunfight. But I shoot it. But taking this thing out to the range and actually plinking with it and getting good with it is something that is challenging for me. I don't like doing it, because for me this gun beats me up, and it beats me up in a lot of different ways. The first of which is, and this is where the direct comparison comes between SP101 and 38. I'm going to talk about the different ways that this is better than a typical J-frame, but I do want you to understand, I still think a J-frame is a good gun. I just think this is a better gun. Okay, hopefully it's simple enough for you. But the first problem I run into with the J-frame, this goes to the Goldilocks thing again, the not too big, not too small. This is perfect for my hand in that everything falls in place just fine. The grips are comfortable, the trigger geometry is good, the shape of the trigger is fine, the hammer, everything is where it needs to be. The cylinder release is superior, but the grip is always too compact. I've never found a comfortable set of grips for this that are capable of doing pocket carry. I have found some that are longer and have kind of a banana shape to them. They're terrific, but then I'd have to carry it in a belt holster. So for pure compactness, this grip is just barely getting by. The trigger geometry is such that my finger barely fits in the trigger guard. It doesn't cycle smoothly across the trigger. The action itself is gritty and crunchy. It's a newer Smith & Wesson. They're all gritty and crunchy. They got that coarse laser engraving in it. Whatever, that's cosmetic. But the cylinder release, when I fire, you'll notice it touches my thumb when I'm gripping up. When I fire, this comes right back against my thumb and tears a little hunk of flesh off. I have perpetually a nice little piece of scar tissue on my thumb, solely down to Smith & Wesson J-frames, whereas this gets nowhere near it. That cylinder release is so far away from my thumb, it's almost laughable at this point. But just as quick to open up because it's a direct push button rather than a push forward. Now that brings us to the next issue, and that is going to be the ejector rod. Now the ejector rod on the SP101 is a full-length rod. So when you pump that, you get all of those empties coming out of that gun, plain and simple. Whereas the ejector rod on the J-frame is half the length. So the likelihood of short stroking and not driving the rounds out of the cylinder, not only is it possible, it happens almost every time I fire this gun. It's almost a dead bet that when I hit that ejector rod and I look down, I'm going to have one round still hanging up in that cylinder right there. And it's not because it hit anything. It just always, for some reason, seems to be right there in the worst possible spot. If it was here, I could just do like that. But nope, it's always there. So I got to do that and then pluck the round out. And that's down to that ejector rod. Also, the chambers aren't polished as effectively as they should be. I could probably smith that problem out and help a little bit, but it's always going to be too damn short. Now, secondarily, there's another issue that occurs. Every time I press check this gun, so knowing that the gun's loaded when you pick it up, and you can sort of see it, I still open the cylinder, make sure everything's cool, and just give a little bit of a pump on the ejector rod, make sure everything's all nice and loosey-goosey and ready to go. But the other thing that I do is put my thumb right there, and I turn this knob counterclockwise. And what I'm doing there is I'm actually tightening that rod because it will, over time, loosen up. I'm not going to close it. Well, I guess, yeah, what the hell, I will. Okay, now it's locked up solid. So the solution on this, you just turn this rod counterclockwise and hope to hell you don't have a shrouded barrel like the 640 has, because then you can't do that at all. So you turn that and then you screw it in enough so that you can get the cylinder open. Has that ever happened to me? Yes, it's happened while I was firing the gun. Just in the act of firing the gun, it loosened up enough to where the cylinder stuck. That doesn't happen with the SP101. The SP101, the rod doesn't impinge upon anything. It's free. Its only job in the world is just drive empties out of the cylinders. The lockup is done via this little lever right here fits into that notch on the frame. That's where the front lockup is from. Otherwise, this thing just sort of hangs there. And it is shrouded, so it's, not going to get damaged by anything while the cylinder's closed. But secondarily, this thing isn't threaded in either. So there's no amount of turning. There's nothing that's going to bind up your cylinder. That's actually a very huge issue for me. Now, the last thing I'll bring up is the sights on the typical J-frames. The sight is very, very shallow. If you look at one, hopefully we can see here, we're talking about this part right here. It's very, very, very shallow. And the front sight is integral to the barrel. So there's really no direct replacement you can do on that without taking it to a machinist and having him machine the sight off and cut a dovetail in there and then drift a replacement front sight in. That's expensive. Whereas the SP101, the notch is deeper. About the only complaint I would have is this should be bead blasted so that it's not a reflective surface. Having said that, I've never had my sights wash out because of the sun directly overhead, so it may be a problem in search of or a solution in search of a problem. The front sight, as I mentioned earlier, it is easily replaceable, and in this case I replaced it with this Meprolite tritium sight. So better sights, slightly larger, easier to shoot, heavier to soak up that recoil, and again, soak up that recoil. It does. That video will show that to good effect. Full length ejector rod. Trigger is better than the any Smith & Wesson J-frame I've ever picked up. Plain and simple. Now typically Rugers do not have triggers as good as the Smith & Wessons. Excuse me. Except for the J-frames. Every J-frame, especially the recent manufactured J-frames, and there's some older J-frames that had some sweet triggers, but the newer stuff with the MIM triggers and everything just being thrown together in the gun, there's really no art to it at all. They just match the parts, toss them into the gun, and if they go snappy snap, you're good to go. Having said that, one of the first things I had to do on this gun within the first year of buying it was I had to replace the rebound spring, and I had to go in and take a bunch of gunk out of the channel that that operated in, because I was having trouble with, I believe it was trigger return, I believe it would just hang up. So it technically didn't work hardly at all until I did that. The lock, of course, I yanked it out because I'm not having anything on my gun that can lock up all on its own. I understand how rare that is, but I also understand it has happened. So it came out immediately when I got the gun. So I have a nice ugly hole in the side of the gun. But having said that, I still will carry a J-frame, because one thing it does very well is it's light. It will go into a pocket and carry very effectively for a deep cover kind of situation. And then I've got at least 5 rounds of effective 38 that I can get on target. Not as effectively as with the SP101, but it's still doable. But if I were choosing one snub over another, I would never ever choose this. If we're talking belt carry, all around, all purpose versatility type gun, the J-frame is not it. This is. Now there are some other guns within the genre, things like the new, was it the Colt Cobra? I think they're calling it the Cobra now. Could be a detective special, could be an agent, not totally sure. I just know it's a Colt. I'm going to be taking a look at one of those. I'm also going to be taking a look at that Kimber, I believe it's the Kimber K6, because both of those represent kind of the same genre, a little bit heavier, but the one big advantage there is both of those have over this is that they're 6-shot, not 5-shot. So I'm not saying that the world ends with the SP101 and I don't need to look any further. I'm going to throw my net out there and see if there's anything else as interesting as the SP101. But I will tell you this, if you're considering an SP101 or you're looking for a belt carry CCW type revolver that isn't too big, isn't too small, it's not too heavy, it's not too light, and it can shoot .357 Magnum and can do it effectively, the SP101 is definitely something that you might want to consider. So with that, I will bring it to a close. Thank you for watching and or listening. We will be following up, as I said, with that range test where I show the 38 plus P versus .357 Magnum. And I will be following up also with an accessories video where I talk about holsters, speedloaders, etc. for the SP101. So again, thanks for watching and or listening. This is Scott from Spectre Gear. Have a wonderful day.